Thank you so much. So, I'm Dan, and I'm a designer. And being a designer is all about bringing moments of joy and simplicity to people's lives. And I wanted to start that right now. The Play-Doh is my gift to you all. And raise your hand if you've actually opened up your Play-Doh. Who started to play with? Awesome. That's great. I wasn't sure if a British audience would be ready to just jump in and start playing with a childhood toy. So this is for you. We're going to be doing some modeling together in a minute. And 3 months ago, I left Silicon Valley working for Google and Walmart and incredible tech companies to come and work for Lloyds Banking Group. And some folks in my network thought I was a bit insane. And quite honestly, it's been a little bit of a journey for me to finally admit that I am also a banker. Because to me, as a designer, I kind of felt like design and banking was a bit like an oxymoron. And I'm here to say that I actually think there's an extraordinary opportunity from within the financial world, from within banking, to actually focus on the power that finances and money and prosperity can have to bring people together. And for those millennials that are like, what is that reference? I don't watch black and white movies. This is a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. Raise your hand if you've seen this film. Awesome, right. So this ending scene is such a powerful view of how finances can help bring families and people together. So the mission at Lloyds Banking Group is to help Britain prosper, and we actually really mean it, from the freshest intern to our CEO. And just here, a couple of examples. We have a pretty comprehensive plan about how we give back. We've trained just in the last year alone over, I think, 700,000 individuals, charities, and nonprofits to kind of upskill using technology and the latest digital know-how so that they can focus on their mission. We have invested in over 125,000 startups and small businesses to get them started on their journey. Just a few weeks ago, there was this workshop up in Glasgow where we brought together some nonprofits to help them kind of share knowledge with each other. We brought in some partners from Google who are really awesome at helping with digital skills. We see the benefits. For example, the Jewish Care Organization, by using technology, they're creating these digital plans where their caregivers are spending more time with folks in this stage of life so that they're not in the back office dealing with all this goo. So it's been pretty amazing to see this work. It's not what I expected from a bank. And the last quick example here is, 1 out of 2 people in the UK will be faced with a cancer diagnosis at some point in their life. I mean, it's kind of a shocking statistic. And when people go through this, the first question is, well, what does that mean for my life? And how long will I be here? And the second question is, will this ruin me financially? And so we've actually trained our support staff and our branch associates to deal with this in a real way. We've given them the flexibility to postpone mortgage payments, to help with not making sure that fees are not layered on top of burdensome medical bills, and partnering with Macmillan to kind of connect with other organizations that can help people on this journey. And the customers that go through this experience, they actually end up saving something like £97 a month. And it's been really encouraging to see a bank that actually cares. But what I want to talk about today is this word prosperity. Because as much as that banking term, which I call the B word sometimes, you just kind of rub out that lower bumpy part and you get a P. I love the P word. Prosperity is interesting. And when we talk to people, what is prosperity? They don't say wealth or material things. They talk about their loved ones and experiences that they want to have. And so my role as Chief Design Officer is actually to design for this. And I wanted to share some thoughts about what does that mean. Now, first of all, we need to change our mindset. I just came back from the US last week where there's this conference called Money 2020. And it's, there's no place I'd rather not be than in Vegas with a bunch of bankers actually talking about tech. And it's so obvious to me that we need a different conversation just about people and money. And to start with that, I want you guys to close your eyes just for a second. Close your eyes. Think back to your earliest memory of money. Think about the emotion that surrounded that. Okay, open your eyes. For me, I remember back when I was a kid, growing up with two hippie artist parents, and we had no money, which kind of felt magical a lot of times, because my parents would like build our furniture out of plywood, and it was kind of awesome. But then I was really into Star Wars, and I remember telling my dad and my mom, can I please get some Star Wars figurines? They're so awesome. And my dad went to his X-Acto board, and with foam core, he like cut out Luke Skywalker. And I was like, Dad, that is not Luke Skywalker. And he's like, well, here's some garbage bags, and here's me like trying to be a stormtrooper. Like, that was kind of a sad moment for me, and I realized that there's this thing called money, and we probably didn't have enough of it, and that sucked. And, you know, I don't know what your memory is, but you may have remembered your parents fighting about money more than they taught you about it. There's really no public education around how to understand money. We live in a society that glorifies material means, and yet we don't talk about this topic. When I was at Google, I did this search on finances, and it's really interesting to see the autocomplete results. The top terms that most people search on for this term are, finances are ruining my marriage, destroying my relationships. I don't know what this crossword puzzle thing is about, but it's interesting. And actually, the statistics bear this out. So 40% of adults in the UK are dealing with present financial stress. That's 120 billion loss in productivity. And more seriously, financial stress is the #1 cause of divorce and the #2 cause of suicide. I mean, when people are losing the will to live, it just feels so empty to have a conversation about hashtag fintech and like blockchain distributed ledgers. And so maybe today, y'all can help me. My Twitter account got banned recently because I'm moving from the US to the UK and I can't unlock it. So, you know, I'm not able to tweet right now, but maybe you guys can help. I think we need a new conversation. We need to help people just make sense of money and recognize that money is also emotional. So there's hope. I wanted to share with you just a couple of ideas that my team is working on right now to help have a more human approach to finances. And so the first one is designing with people. So open up your Play-Doh, and if someone next to you doesn't have Play-Doh, maybe share with them. And before I get started, does anyone know what Play-Doh was called before it was Play-Doh? Anybody? So Play-Doh was Kutal, of course. Back at the turn of the century, coal-burning stoves and furnaces would leave soot on the wall. And you needed, of course, wall cleaner and putty to clean it up. And as that business almost folded through gas and electric heating, the CEO of Kutal had heard a story about a school teacher in a nearby town that had put food coloring drops in her Kutal and used it as modeling clay in her classroom. So the CEO said, that's the purpose of this company, and they launched Play-Doh. Take your Kutal. What I want you to do is, you just have 60 seconds. I want you to design the most amazing toothbrush from the future. On your mark, get set, go. Okay, we're in the final seconds, but who wants to share their amazing Play-Doh from the future? Anyone, or their toothbrush, yeah? What do you got? Here, speak here.
It's a mouth guard that vibrates, so you don't have to do anything yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, be honest, how many of you actually bit into your Play-Doh? I saw, yeah, amazing. That's great. Why do we take a planar surface to 4 surfaces? Why not just bite into something that could just brush in a couple of bites? Okay, who else has some toothbrush from the future they want to share? Yeah, what do you got?
A happy mouth.
A happy mouth. Fantastic. That's awesome. All right, maybe one more.
I think I've gone pretty similar with just a little mouth guard that runs around all your teeth.
Amazing. It's like a Roomba for your mouth. Like, that's great. It also kind of looks like candy to me. Like, I could totally get my kids to brush their teeth if I just said, have this little ball of gum. So look, if we had time to actually look at all of the ideas that you guys just created, I think we'd be inspired by how quickly, with no briefing, using common tools gives us the ability to get into a really creative space. So when we design with people, this is what we're doing. We're giving them common tools, not complicated tools like Excel and Illustrator and AutoCAD. We're giving them paper and crayons and Play-Doh. So please don't just give your Play-Doh to your kids. Give your Play-Dohs to your customers and see what they create with you. Okay, so one example of doing this with a little bit more intensity than just Play-Doh, at Google, we created this mobile maker mobile that was covered in 4,000 linear feet of Velcro. We drove 14,000 miles across the country, and Velcro is just awesome. But you do have to prototype, because when we drove at night for the first time from Pasadena to Vegas, we realized that insects get really attracted to Velcro, so definitely prototype all the time. But we would gather teams, and in just 48 hours, we would do a make-a-thon, kind of like a hardware version of a hackathon. Folks would come up with ideas of what technology should be, and then they would come together as teams and make it. So this is a team at Caltech that created a work glove that translated American Sign Language into text messages so the deaf could communicate with anyone. We had a team out of MIT that this guy had been hit by a bicyclist behind him when he was slowing down, and so he put an accelerometer in the helmet that would show red brake lights. These guys raised almost $1 million on Kickstarter. And I was in the Apple store a couple of weeks ago, and their second generation helmet is now there. So at Google, we wanted to create a platform where all these ideas could take shape. And so that Project Aura modular phone was the result of what happens when you actually design with people. Now, while this particular product didn't make it, we're in the third generation of the Moto Z, which is a modular phone. Any of you guys have the Moto Z out there? Nobody. So clearly not the most popular phone out in the UK. But this is actually my primary phone, and this phone wouldn't have existed if we hadn't started that process. So sometimes you dream a bit further than you're able to deliver, but good things can still come out. Okay, I'm gonna just wrap up with two last thoughts. The second one is we need a new language. The language of money today is numbers and acronyms like APR and pending charges. And I wanted to show an example of, as a designer, how you create a new language. So the last 2 years at Walmart, we were trying to create a new design language around making decisions around shopping. And we would host pizza nights where people would come into our studios and actually talk about what does living better mean to them and how can that be better. We would then take those collages, and the team would do our own version of that kind of make-a-thon and try to think about what could a new shopping experience be like. And one of the most important things was people feel overwhelmed. When I joined Walmart a couple years ago, this is what it looked like. Really advertised and just section after section of carousels, like really no clear point of view. Most people just would search and not engage with this page. And I remember hearing this story about Sam Walton, who wanted to call the first Walmart Walton Supermart Discount City. And he went to his store associate, Bob Bogle, and he said, "Hey, Bob, I want to name the store." And Bob just was like, "Well, each letter costs $7, and there's not a lot of space." So he's like, "What if we just called it Walmart?" And Sam was like, "Absolutely." And that idea of just removing everything that's unnecessary and then what's there is personal became the spirit of this new design language. So we actually commissioned a new typeface that we named Bogle after Bob, who is our first typographer. And we designed something that was mobile first, scaled beautifully to the desktop, and just stripped away all the clutter and became really personalized as you interacted with this page, and would have kind of curated focused lists of a predictive shopping list, and the results were incredible. We doubled conversion. This led to a growth rate that rivaled Amazon's, with a stock price increase, actually after I had left, which was a little unfortunate, but that's okay. That was bigger than a decade that they've ever had. And so this is what it can be like to create a language. And so I'm so excited to see what that could be in money. We just brought the entire Lloyds Banking team, design team together to articulate our purpose. Here are our 5 principles. First, we need to connect the dots and be inclusive of people from all backgrounds. And it's not just about simplicity, it's about clarity with complicated finances. We have to stand up with courage for people's financial wellness and do that in a way that is deeply compassionate. And we've defined prosperity as helping people end the day just a bit better than it started. So, team, if I have just 2 more minutes, because do I have 2 more minutes? Do I have 2 more minutes? 1 more minute. Okay, the final thought, I see red blinking lights, is the last thing is we need a new metaphor. I recently have been thinking about, like in physical health, for the longest time, we just have this thing called your weight. And it's just like not helpful for a lot of people. Like, what do I do about that? It's kind of like your bank balance. You go into your bank app and you see a new number. And I've been impressed in the fitness world to see new metaphors emerge. Right, so we see wearables that don't talk about weight. They talk about number of steps today, how much you sit and stand, and how much water you're drinking. Like, these are really interesting things that refresh every day that get us into a different relationship with health. So I visited Lloyds Banking Group's archives in Edinburgh, this place called the Mound, and we looked at the 323-year-old founding documents. And if there was a Wired Live in 1650, there would be a keynote speaker about this, the ledger, which was a banking innovation of like structured financial data. But in the last 323 years, if we're honest with ourselves, most financial experiences have just not deviated from this one metaphor. And it's not really helping us. So we are just beginning the process. These are photos from last week about our team talking with customers. Like, what could finances be like to make more sense of them? And a lot of negative things like spider webs and prisons are coming out. But like, what if, money is like water and there's different containers, and how do we manage flow and give you more kind of insight into how to make that little progress each day? We've even started to play with Lego in how do you connect you and folks around you and the events that you want to take. So I don't know where this is going to lead, but I know that these are the right questions to ask, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. Please reach out to me. I'd love to get your thoughts on how to foster prosperity in your different areas, and maybe next year when we come back, we'll share some more ideas. So let's go from fintech to helping people just make fin sense. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.